Hey everybody, Chadwick here with Bolster, account executive. Just talking about the last year and how things have gone and what to expect for 2026. Um, Probably the biggest thing that we talked about last year and what we were all excited for and anticipating was Trump coming in and really getting the economy back going on fire, kind of like he did the first time. Unfortunately, it's taken a little longer than expected. Um, and as a Canadian, we see it in a different lens a little bit. We don't really have a dog in the fight politically, but we do have a dog in the fight, business wise and financially wise. So it's certainly gotten better from under Biden to Trump. But we didn't see the big increases. We thought maybe it would take 3 months or so in the excitement. But the only problem is interest rates were up, and he wasn't able to move as much in the economy, I think, as he needed to. But I believe that 2026 is going to be his year to get things done because he has to. Midterms are coming up, and he's got to get things rolling. And I really believe that there's been some increases for sure, but I think that people have held on to their money for a few different reasons. Interest rates have been high, so new homes have sort of stalled a little bit. People have been nervous with the tariffs. It's going to take time for all that stuff to kick in, the effects of it, whether it's good or bad. And I really believe that this year we can start to expect things to turn around. Um, and one thing that's definitely happened is home builders have switched to renovations. So the renovation market has gotten more crowded with players that wouldn't have normally been there. So that's definitely a big change this year that we saw. A lot of home builders coming in saying, "Hey, I can't build a house right now, so I'm going back to my roots, renovations." So that's what I would say the biggest things are, from 25 to 20, or what's coming to 26 here, is we're definitely on an upward trajectory.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Chadwick. I think a lot of this, especially you hit the nail on the head through a different set of lenses being Canadian. Um, a lot of those tariff talk and whatnot really hasn't affected us, I think, too much, other than at the grocery store. But maybe we can, blame a little bit more on inflation on that than the tariffs. A lot of the clients I deal with, again, their pricing hasn't changed dramatically. On different products, unlike when we went through the COVID spectrum where pricing was going, all over the place. Um, I totally agree with you. We're a little bit still in the unknown, but I sure hope it gets back on track. And I think a lot of it will have to do with what you said earlier, is with the lowering of the mortgage rates. I think that'll spur growth. I think that'll spur change, and I think it'll spur economic movement in the construction industry, where the things get a lot cheaper. People are more apt to build houses, to do some, pull equity out of the home because of the rates are lower, and then thus do renovations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the time, like I say, when people pull back a little bit, they start saving money, actually.
Hmm. Yep,
They
totally.
were going to do that renovation last year, and now they've held off for 3 or 6 months or 9 months. And we kind of saw that during COVID, where people held on a little bit and had all this extra money. And I'm not sure that's exactly the case. There's a lot of different things going on. Uh, but yeah, I definitely see positivity heading our way. And I think one thing that has definitely changed for 2025 and going into 26 is AI has become relevant. A year ago, nobody even really thought about AI too much, but now it's very prevalent, and there's a lot of softwares that have adopted AI for quoting. But what's been really
Both good
interesting
and
about
bad. Absolutely.
yeah, and what's been interesting about that, as you well know, Ryan, is the AI quoting softwares are getting it wrong. So we've had a
Absolutely.
influx of customers coming to us saying, "Hey, we want to see what you guys are doing," and they ask us if we have AI in our program, and we use AI in a different way. We don't use it to
Hmm.
figure out what something should cost, and more contractors have either lost money on jobs or had to spend so much more time rechecking the AI quote that it makes it, just not feasible. It actually costs them time or
Mhm.
it costs them money. So I think AI is one big conversation, but I think it's sort of, I'm thinking another year to 3 years and AI will be amazing. And like in
Mhm.
Bolster, the way that we use AI is, we have a paid database for labor rates, and that AI can only check those rates within the system. So they are, they're already correct. And now the AI can build you a quote based on those parameters and pull it from
Yeah.
materials and labor right inside the estimate that are already approved. So there's no guessing here. And the AI is like a guesser at this point.
Yeah, you know what it is, and Chadwick, we're in the cutting edge of technology with the construction software, so we know a little bit behind the scenes of the AI, and you know what, the customers and clients that I deal with, a lot of the ones that are strapped for time or whatnot think that AI is a great tool to
Mm-hmm.
utilize because it's brings up pricing and all that other stuff instantly.
Yeah.
But as we know, and as a lot of the much more educated contractors that we deal with know, that they don't want the AI because it does make the errors. Because realistically,
Yeah.
it's just searching the internet and it's just doing it at a better, faster rate with intuition, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, a lot of them asking us make sure we don't have AI that quotes their projects because
Yes.
they know it's inaccuracies and
Yeah.
whatnot. So again, it's a double-edged sword. It can help one thing, and that's why I think again, you're 100% right. Where give it time. Give it time,
Yes.
and then AI will be, refined a lot better, just like the internet was, or whatever it happens to be. Just give it time once it refines better and be able to think better on its own. Whereas right now, it's handy at times, and we use it in very, very certain situations to help us do our job. But again, we just again find out so many times it's been wrong or false or led us astray. So it's a very dangerous tool, but a very helpful tool if used in the right way.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. It's kind of interesting when we talk about Bolster and how it's, how a human is going to help you make sure that your prices are correct. And we've already got a
Mhm.
database that's, 30 years old of labor rates. And all this stuff is known, but the AI is a bit reckless at this point, I think, is the problem. If you go on Chat GTP and type in a fence project, it'll get it pretty close. It's not too bad. But if you wanted to do a full kitchen renovation or an addition, it's not even close. And the time that you would spend to make sure
Mhm.
that that is correct. Yeah, so it's just not there. So I think that's been one interesting thing for sure, is that a lot of guys have all of a sudden, a lot of companies have spurted up now and they're marketing and saying they've got the answer. And it's kind of sad in some ways because we've had some guys that say, we've lost $10,000 on a job. We went ahead and we did the job. And I thought to myself, why wouldn't you do your more due diligence and check? But
Yeah,
they didn't know from the get-go. They trusted the AI. And so it's actually, that's one been a positive thing for us, is it's driven more customers to us, you know. So,
yeah.
but like we say, give it 3 to 5 years or however long. I mean, it's getting better and better. And yes, it probably will be,
You know what?
a better
Absolutely,
tool.
Chad. A lot of contractors, especially younger or inexperienced contractors, or that we see looking for that quick, easy fix, right? And they think AI is that tool to help them with that quick, easy fix, but unfortunately, it's not right now. And again, but we do see the benefits of it.
Yeah.
And again, we are going to be utilizing it in the future once it's refined to a point that we trust it and that our
Yeah.
clients trust it.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. Everybody thinks it's a quick, easy fix,
Yeah,
and it just is not. It's, like I say, we've got a pretty good system here that we know labor rates, we know time, and we know products, to put in there. When you put it all together, you've got a nice, accurate estimate
yeah,
very quickly. So yeah, it's been interesting for sure. Um,
absolutely,
when
absolutely.
when you get your customer, once they've gone and seen the demo and they've subscribed to Bolster and now they go over to, the onboarding, do they, what's that process like? Are they talking about AI at that point? Or is that pretty much past at that
You,
point? And
you know what? A lot don't. The only ones that do bring it up are ones like you said mentioned earlier that got burnt by it in the past.
right.
Those are the only ones that bring it up, right? Because they like, hey,
Yeah.
make sure this doesn't happen? I'm like, absolutely, it's going to be inputted by our locked in, tried and true labor rates or pricing from a drawing from our auto cost system or their own pricing and labor rates that they've used
Yeah.
for years and years and tweaked and developed on their own end of things, which they know are exactly accurate. So again, the only time clients ever bring it up on the onboarding side of things is when they've been burnt in the past, and
Yeah.
make sure that we don't draw it from that, which at this point in time we don't.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's the biggest thing is they are skeptical when they come to us,
Hmm.
firstly of our pricing, how we come to that number for them. And, like we tell them, it's a paid database. We look at your labor rates. We've got a contractor that's going to set your account up that has, 20 plus years experience in the business.
Hmm.
It's pretty hard to not have a responsible, rate for everything that you do and put it together. And that's the biggest thing is they are skeptical. All these contractors I find have one thing in common is they just really want help with their numbers.
Yeah, the
To make it
process is absolutely, yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, and what about, we're talking about interest rates and home builders and whatnot. Have you seen that transition? And is that an easy flow for you to transition that home builder into renovations?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what is really handy for us? And again, we'll pat ourselves on the back a little bit because it's easy for us because we have pre-built templates made for these guys, whether it be in the auto cost system or just a generic different style of
Yeah.
templates from high tech to low tech, and it'll feed any clientele we need to. And it's easy to take a step back, as we've all done. Me and you have both been in construction for many, many years. It's easy to go from big to small, whereas it's the tougher job is for some of these contractors that we deal with. They're going from small to big. They're a renovator, then they want to do the custom homes, or they're the carpenter that want to get into renovations.
Yes.
That's the big step.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stumbling blocks along the way. But going from a home builder to a renovator, that's actually taking that step back, and sometimes those guys like it because it's easier on them. There's less overhead. There's less problems, issues, et cetera, et cetera. So some found success doing it that way, but easy to go to downsize. It's hard to upscale.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think about, there's no replacement for displacement when you're talking about V8s and cars,
You
there's
betcha.
just
Yeah.
um and it's sort of the same scenario with experience. There's no replacement for
Oh,
that.
100%.
However, that's where I would say Bolster comes in where, hey, you haven't done these jobs, but hey, listen, we've got all the templates. If you follow the steps, follow the checklist, put
Yep.
the measurements in, this is going to give you a responsible number. You're not going to lose money on it.
Yep.
And you're going to
Absolutely.
have a detailed list for that customer and yourself, knowing that you've checked off everything on the list. So I think that's where it
Yep.
really helps for sure. So
100%. It's a great starting spot. A lot of our, especially with our auto cost system, and our craftsman labor rates. Again, they're exactly what you would pay at your Home Depot, for example, or Lowe's or Rona or whatever it happens to be. And that their craftsman labor rates, it's everything's locked in with tried and true labor rates that they could utilize. Again, like you said, there's no replacement for displacement. And I love that terminology. I've used it many,
yeah.
many times in my past. But again, there's no replace for experience. So if you don't want to use those auto costs,
Yeah.
then we draw on the last previous projects you've done to find what your pricing is, your labor pricing is for different scopes of work and whatnot. That gives also a great starting spot for a lot of these contractors as well.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about mortgage rates coming down and what that
Hmm.
means. From last year, it's definitely been flat. Where we've talked about how home builders have now gotten into renovations, and that's muddied up the water, of course, for renovators, more competition. So now
Yep.
you really got to separate yourself
Water
as
down.
yep, you got to
Hmm.
separate yourself as a contractor. Now, why are you going to pick me over, the next guy? So definitely the competitiveness has gone up. And now I think that we're going to have influx of new home builds again and a boom back on that side. So, there's always changes. So that
Hmm.
leaves a little more room for the renovators. Maybe those home builders stay in the renovations a little bit, but truly the home builder does not want to do renovations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Renovation, right?
Hmm.
Renovations are full of complexity and variables where not that new homes are not, it's just, they're good at what they do there and, they like building from the ground up. They specialize in it. So the one thing I can see for 2026 is that we should have an influx of people building again.
Mhm.
Those rates probably need to come down a little bit more to really fuel that boom. But I think the big thing is those home builders are going to see definitely an increase in interest in
Oh,
building.
absolutely, absolutely, Chadwick. Two things I'll even draw on my own experience, right? Me and you are in the age group that we own our own homes and whatnot. So, again, when mortgage rates drop down, I'm going to be renewing in the spring. It's when my time to renew comes up. I'll be coming into, I can put some, pull out some money against my mortgage because the rates are going to go down longer. And then my
Sure.
wife's been bugging me to do a renovation here and there in the house, right? So again, that's going to spurn construction. Low mortgage rates going down again. Again, spark new home growth, right? As we've seen multiple times in throughout, even just in Calgary, but in nationwide as well. That's what triggers growth is those lower mortgage rates. People can now afford to do renovations, buy a new home, whatever it happens to be. Absolutely. And then you hit the again. I can't agree more with you. Um, what'll set because the market will be a bit watered down. We want to say with more renovators coming into that market. We've seen it, in the industry with when oil booms, the same kind of a thing in Calgary. What's going to set you apart when the market is now watered down or flooded with more contractors? Well,
Mhm.
I think number one is getting a great construction estimation software with the great proposals and accurate pricing, similar to ourselves, that will set you apart from somebody that's just sending a PDF, a copy of pricing. What's going to set you apart? Allowing a contractor or clients to make decisions and choices of their renovation or their build or their home build or whatever they're doing, being able to
Yeah.
be more comfortable seeing those prices, a live time and the trust and honesty that develops with the homeowner.
Yeah, absolutely. When it's watered down, as you said, it everybody starts to compete on price when there is nothing to separate each contractor. It would,
Mhm.
you know, easily just go back down to price. So, having a way to separate yourself and, customers buy on trust, on value. And if you can show more value and that you're more organized and trustworthy than the next guy, that's generally what's going to capture that customer to go with you.
Yep.
Relationship sales are not completely dead, but it's close. Back in the 70s and the 80s, it was
Oh,
very relationship um, oriented sales methods. And
yeah,
now I think, customers are educated. They want things a lot quicker. They look at your systems of, um, how you're going to treat them in that estimation process. And
hmm,
I think that's a big weighing factor on why they would choose a contractor one over the other.
absolutely.
And, with Bolster, um, the way that you can articulate, you know, the pricing and the price range in literally 10 minutes for, say, a new home build just by punching in some, uh, basic parameters for a budget. That's pretty amazing where
Hmm.
most contractors are going to have to, most contractors are just going to have that conversation and just say a bunch of things and wave their hands around. And, for a customer trying to spend 600,000 or 1.2 or 10 million on a home, that just isn't going to cut it.
No, absolutely. And again, I always say that the worst thing a contractor could say luckily we can go around that and not utilize that, but the worst thing contractors could say is "I'll get back to you."
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
that's where we avoid that completely with our software is being able to not do that, is having all that pricing of all the different selections, upgrades, downgrades, optional items built into that. So I think, getting back to our original topic is with these lower mortgage rates coming up, and again, everybody's forecasted that. I'm assuming that's in the States as well. That's just going to spur nothing but growth. And then when that does change, then, a month or so later, once everybody gets geared up, we see the benefit of that. People now, more contractors, people want estimation software, and not only that, they want something to set themselves apart.
Yeah. And,
Absolutely. So,
one thing in business, as we know, it goes up and down, and
mhm,
he who capitalizes on that time frame wins. The
absolutely.
thing is being ready for it when it comes and capitalizing on it because it may be short-lived. That's the other thing too is
Strike while the iron is hot.
yeah, you just never know
Yep.
in construction. And hopefully, we've got another 2, 3, 4 good years here. Um, if, the American economy, turns around here, and I think we're probably in for some good times. But, sales is a race, and you only have a certain amount of time in that race to capitalize on it. So, that's what I foresee is definitely we're on that right. Everything's looking good, for 2026 for sure.
Absolutely, Chadwick. And again, like with our generation has seen many, many more ups and downs than the younger generation, these new Gen X or Gen Z guys that we see a lot, right?
Yeah,
Again, when the upswing starts happening, it's time to jump on it and capitalize on you at the time because you never know when that's going to go back down again, right? Whether
yep,
it be, the home build or that big renovation you want to do, because hey, and a year from now, 2 years from now, those mortgage rates can go back up again and then affect things inadvertently, right? Or negatively.
yep. Yeah, it's very volatile right now for sure. So again, timing is
Yeah.
key. Yep. So,
Absolutely. I think we're going to see more change this year coming up due to the mortgage rates change than the tariff changes. Actually, I think a lot of us we saw those tariffs and whatnot. And again, this is just from our smaller in the construction side of things. I think it was a lot of fear mongering and a lot of we see all these tariffs of what's going to happen, but I don't think it's really affected us too much on the construction side of things. Whereas I think now with the lower mortgage rates, I think we will see a lot more change than the tariffs because again, it's actually going to put money back in people's pockets or being able to have more money. Whereas, as we found
yeah,
out, when mortgage rates are high, less money, they're much more, they want much more value for the dollar. They want to be much more choosy, as you said earlier, and save. Rainy day kind of a style situation where now they're
yeah,
more apt to because they have that disposable income. They've, less
yeah.
payments on a mortgage or whatever it happens to be, or just ability to buy a new home.
Yeah, they do need to see a little bit of money in their pocket for sure as a consumer. That
Hmm.
definitely fuels it. When it's always going out, 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 then
Yeah,
they pull back and they freeze. But all they need is, $1,000 coming in, or just, to see the positivity. And like I say, I think a lot of people have held back a little bit, right? And people that have money, whether they've got, 10,000 in the bank or 30,000 or 100,000, they'll they could have spent that money a year ago, but just wanted to hold on, and they need that confidence. So I think, and there's a lot of people out there in those scenarios. There's also a lot of people, with no money, but they also don't buy renovations or do repairs, So there's
yeah,
just a different
absolutely.
category there.
They do it themselves. They're
Yeah,
the
it's the
DIYers.
Yeah, that's right. So there's a different category, for everybody. And I mean, obviously the
Hmm.
category for renovators, these people do have money, or they're going to borrow it, have the ability to borrow it. So yeah, I think everything is definitely going and pointing in the right direction.
Absolutely. Again, we said last year, I remember on our last conversation, there's a lot of fear of the unknown
Yeah,
where they all our contract because they hear, with Trump in power, tariffs, they're like, oh, what are we going to do? What's going to happen? Let's just, pull back the reins a little bit. But I think now after this calendar year, they know what these tariffs are including. They know
yeah,
how volatile it is. Or now maybe it's a little more stable, and they know when the mortgage rates drop down. They know the result of it because we've seen it happen before. We know what the results are. So again, I think it's a little less fear of the unknown and a little more um, optimism for the future.